So basically, the first thing you want to do when you are creating a PvP script, well, you want to be able to attack other people, right? So let's just get that out the way. And considering we haven't got any enemies right now, we're gonna bring a little enemy. So I'm just loading up another client here. Basically, we're right here, and we have to identify a target. Okay. Wait a minute. ChatGPT's gone. Bring him back. Bring him back. Where's he gone? All right, there he is. Okay, so we have to identify a target. And so I'm just saying one method for us to identify a target is to use a piece of code, which we've got up here, which is we're going to make a list of all potential players that can attack us, right? Which is this get players in combat level range. If you look at the code inside that, it makes a list of all people that can attack us in that moment. That means that they're in the right wilderness level, and they're in within our combat bracket. They're in the wilderness. And so, right, we've got this list of players, right? And so we've got to choose, right, which one of those players is our target. And so, just as an example, I said, right, well, if they're interacting with us, which is more than likely they're attacking us, they could be following us or trading with us or using an item on us, but 9 times out of 10 it's going to be attacking. For this example, we're going to use that. If they're attacking us, then we want them to be our target and we want to react. And so we create a variable called target. We declare it as null to begin with because, you know, when you turn the script on, yeah, it's whatever. It's going to be null. And then we do a for loop to look through that list of players. We look through that list of players. If the player is null or if the player doesn't have a name, then we just skip. We just continue. But if the player is interacting with something and that player is dot get interacting with dot get name dot equals my player dot get name, which means if that player is interacting with me, then he's our target. And so then the next line will be, right, after we have our target, we can do whatever the hell we want with our target. We can see how much health they have. We can see what armor they're wearing. We can see how far away they are from us. If they're animating, if they're eating, if they're praying, bunch of stuff, right? And then we can say, right, if the target is praying this, do that. Right, if the target is wearing adamant armor or rune armor, well, switch to mage or run away or whatever the hell. Okay? So the important bit is getting our target name, okay? So getting our target, the RS2 player model, but the error we found with this initial approach, which we use ChatGPT to get because we're not whiz kings, you know, we're using the tools that we have available to us. The error with this simple code is that we lose the target the minute that they stop interacting with us. So, and that's no good because look, you can see this line of interaction, right? That means you're interacting. If you follow someone, that means you're interacting. If you attack someone, that means you're interacting. But look, if you eat, now you're not interacting. So if we lose a target every time then they're not interacting with us, well, that means that every time they eat in a fight, we're going to act as if we have no target, even though we're in the middle of a fight. And that can be good. That can be really, really good, particularly if it's very snappy like that, because they could be running away, and we don't want to chase them down. We just want to chill. And so then we lose them as a target. That's great. And I have methods for, like, decay. So, like, you build up... They build up value. So, like... if they're interacting with you, if they're animating a combat animation, if while they're animating a combat animation, you are receiving a hit splat and a couple other conditions, if all these conditions are met, they start to gain a numerical value, right? Every tick. And if they have a numerical value over 1, this means that they're your target, right? And if you have multiple targets, then the one with the highest numerical value is going to be your main target. That's my decay system that I have. But we're not going to implement that here right now in just this exact moment. But the point is, we got to store this target variable. And so the point as well is that the minute they stop interacting with you and they run away and they are not animating a combat animation, and they are not when you get a hit splat, you know, they're not involved, then it will start to decay their numerical value, and it starts to go down quite rapidly as well, exponentially rapidly, until it hits to 0, and then you can say, right, this isn't my target anymore. If your intention is to do that, you may want to chase them down, and so then you put the conditions of, if my target is still alive, then frickin' kill him, you know, whatever the hell. That's the thing. That's why I've had difficulty making this video, because there's so many different approaches you can take to PvP depending on your perspective. But the main points are, number 1, find your target, and then number 2, react to your target, right? Let's see. But is Chibi D still alive? I gotta see. He's still alive. Epic. Okay, let's have a look. You want to store your target in a variable or something. Yeah. So you have your target variable, it's stored there. I tend to store it in the plugin class instead of the script class, but just because anything that's to do with tracking, I would store in the plugin class because it's running on the client thread, while stuff in the script class, not so much. And you just do actions in the script class. So, the question I pose to our Spanish watchers is, how are we going to store this target variable? Like, what more logic are we going to put to store this target variable? We can't just have get interacting, because the minute get interacting is over, then we lose them as a target, and that doesn't work for a PvP situation. A normal PvP situation, okay? So that was my question to them, and so let's see what they've said. Vale. Adolfo ha dicho que mientras está a la vista sea el target. Muy bueno. Hasta matarlo o desaparece. Muy bueno. So, just a quick reminder, we've been able to identify what the target... We've been able to identify the target, for one. We've been able to store the target across time, which actually we need now a method to clear the target, because if we turn the plugin off, we should clear the target. So we can actually do that right now. We can put it on shutdown. So on shutdown, target equals null. So that will clear the target every time you shut it down. Easily done. All right. So we've identified a target. We're able to store the target. We're able to unstore the target, because also when this target dies or runs away, it will go null, as we've coded in. We're able to attack the target when it's appropriate, which we've decided is when the target is not interacting with us and when we're not tick delayed from eating. We were able to examine the composition of the target to see which attack styles they have in order to respond appropriately. And a further thing we could do is examine their health, examine what armor they have on, how much armor they have on, if they have lots of rune, if they have just a little bit of rune, if they're praying or not. And to get those extra functionalities, you can go into the Microbot repo, go into Wildy Killer script as an example, and this is the only script in all of Microbot which has a plethora. You can see there's 3,000 lines. Okay, it doesn't stop, it keeps going. 2,300, okay. Majority, I'd say about 78% of it is that kind of stuff. Autocasting spells. So, for instance, in the wilderness, when you are autocasting a spell, if you switch weapons, the autocast goes away, and so you have an autocaster here that puts the autocast on. And let's have a look at prayer. Look, there you go. Here's an example. If the target has a maple shortbow equipped, then, and your prayer is 39 or over, and you have some prayer points, then turn on protect from range. So this is an example, line 74.2 to 745. This is an example of how to react to a ranger with prayer. And here's an example of if the target has a rune plate body and you have death runes to cast Wind Blast. There's loads of interesting little bits of logic. Here's the Maple Longbow. Here's the set combat style. If we go into that, we can see it checks the var bits here. These are the different combat styles: long range, accurate, and the auto cast. And it will check these styles, and it will check if you're in defensive or not. It will check if you're in attack style 3. If you want to do long range, it will put it there. If you want to do rapid, even you could choose to do accurate. I had a lot of PKers that would be able to get a max hit in accurate, and so they would sometimes use that if they needed to get that extra max hit. Lots of functionality here. How to use protection prayers. You can create your own eating methods. That is essentially where we're at right now. We're trying to develop the best eating methods that involve like risk, where you risk your health in order to get the kill. A lot of my practicing with PKing scripts hasn't really revolved around eating. The only element of eating is that I want them to eat to not die. I don't really care about risking. I don't really care about much else, and so that is an element that is worth exploring, which I haven't explored much. It's just how to eat properly. But aside from that, the Wildy Killer script covers a lot of stuff. Sadly, it's not laid out very well. That's why I wanted to make this kind of video, to just go over some things. But yeah, we have here how to react if the enemies are praying. And let's have a look. Yeah, determine the optimal prayer for range. And so this is I think for a multi situation, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, if you got more than 3 attackers, then do this and do that. Yeah. Enjoy. Thank you for tuning into the live stream. I hope you learned at least a little something from this video on how to make your first PvP script.